Steak for Supper by Dr. Seuss. When I'm all by myself and there isn't a crowd, I guess I sometimes get thinking out loud. And I guess I was talking while stirring my feet on the way home from supper down Mulberry Street, and I must have been thinking about what I would eat, because I shouted out loud with all of my might that we always have steak every Saturday night. My father had warned me, "Don't babble, don't bray, for you never can tell who might hear what you say." My father had warned me, "Boy, button your lip." And I guess I should have. But I made a bad slip. Because the minute I said that we had steak for our meal, I noticed an icker behind at my heel. And that icker was trailing me home for a bite of that steak we have every Saturday night. I got sort of worried. Our steaks are quite small, and we had none to spare for that icker at all. Then I got really worried. The next thing I knew, the icker was talking and babbling too. That icker was waving his wing at a Gritch. "Come on," he was calling. "They're terribly rich. They've plenty of steak, and they'll cook it just right, because they've always had steak every Saturday night." Then the Gritch started giving the come-along sign, inviting a Grickle to get in the line. "Join up," called the Gritch, "for I am sure they are able to set one more place at the dinner room table." An icker, a Gritch, and a Grickle to feed. My mother, I knew she would be angry indeed. I groaned, and I knew that it hadn't been right when they bragged we had steak every Saturday night. And then the Grickle called out to a nupper, "They always have steak for their Saturday supper." Good gracious, I gasped. How the news gets around, and the steak's so expensive. $1 a pound. A nupper for supper, a Gritch, and a Grickle, and also a icker. Oh boy, what a pickle. I shivered. I wondered what Father would do when I walked in the house with a terrible crew. When the father saw them, there was a very good chance that I'd likely get whaled to the seat of my pants. And I guess if I did, it would serve me quite right, because I babbled we had steak every Saturday night. And then very next second I groaned, "Oh, good grief," when the nupper called out to a pair of wild weef. "Come on, you wild waif, what a party we'll make. For Saturday's supper, they'll always have steak." What a mess! 2 wild weef, and a nupper, an icker, a Gritch, and a Grickle. I'll never felt sicker. I knew that that minute I walked through the door, my mother would faint and my father would roar. And tomorrow they'd sent me to one of the schools where they tried to train boys how to not act like fools. I reached for the doorknob and trembled with fright, all because I'd said, "Steak every Saturday night." I opened the door, then I stopped with a sniff. I smelled what was cooking. I took big whiff. The icker stopped, also sniffed at that smell, and so did the weef and the nupper as well. The Grinch and the Grickle, they stopped and they sniffed too, and the moment we sniffed it, we all of us knew that the stuff we had sniffed wasn't steak. It was stew. The butcher who'd sent it had made a mistake. For Saturday's supper, we didn't have steak. "Just stew?" gulped the Grickle. "Just stew? Pooh," I said. "If they only had stew, I don't think I would stay." "Stew?" they all snorted out loud in disgust. And they all disappeared in a big cloud of dust. What luck! I stood safe, all alone in the hall. My mother and Dad hadn't seen them at all. And from that night to this, I never made slips. I don't talk when I walk. 'cause I've buttoned my lips.